Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I hadn't been doing this very long, and I'm still kind of nervous about it, but y'all bear with me. I've been thinking about a lot about lessons for quite a while. Since today is Mother's Day, I thought I'd give a lesson on mothers. My mother has been with Jesus more than 11 years now. Time definitely has eased the path of separation, but time has also failed my memories. Circumstances in my life caused me to think about her a lot. I miss her, and to reflect on what a blessing she has to me. In addition to celebrating our mothers who are here with us this Mother's Day, I want to remind all of us to take time to remember our mothers, our grandmothers, who have dwelt in our hearts. This morning I want to talk about mothers. There are a lot of mothers in the Bible. I'll give you a few examples. There's Eve, the first mother. Rebecca, Sarah, Hannah, Rachel and Leah, who were sisters. And that's just to name just a few. But I want to talk about one mother today, especially, and that's Moses' mother. I'll tell you more about that in just a few minutes, but at this time I think it's an honor and a privilege to go to our Lord in prayer. Thank you for putting my lesson up here, part of it. I'll explain this back behind me in just a few minutes. Well, I'd like to say Happy Mother's Day to everyone. My lesson text this morning is taken from Exodus chapter 2, 1 through 14, which I'll read to you in just a moment. But first of all, I want to tell you a little story. There was one afternoon, a man was coming home from work. As he drove up in the driveway, parked his truck. In the driveway, he noticed 3 kids, ages from 3 to 6, playing outside in the mud with several boxes of cereal, wrappers all scattered on the yard. The front door of the house was open, and also noticed his wife's car doors were all open. He walked into the house and into the living room. He noticed a lamp had been knocked over. The TV was blaring on some cartoon shows. A pile of sugar was in a recliner, and the family dog was foaming at the mouth, running around in circles. All this is because he'd been eating sugar. There were dirty clothes scattered all over the living room, and the kids were scattered as well. In the kitchen he went. There was dishes in the sink, a broken pitcher, which probably once had Kool-Aid in it, was all over the floor. The refrigerator door was standing wide open, and it looked like the dog had probably drug out several items out of the refrigerator. The man was really getting worried. Had something happened to his wife? He quickly ran upstairs, stepping over toys, piles of clothes, when he finally come to the bedroom. There he saw his wife, curled up in bed, still in her pajamas, reading her favorite book. She looked up at him, and smiled, and asked him how his day was. He looked at her totally confused and asked her, "What's going on here? What happened today?" Well, she replied with this answer. "Well, every day you come home from work, and you ask me what in the world I did today. Well, today, I did nothing." So sometimes we take our mothers for granted. I know I did. You know that mothers are one of the most important roles in all earth. The Bible tells us that so many times, including in the Ten Commandments, repeated in Proverbs, and repeated in Ephesians and 2 Timothy. Also, many of our greatest scholars or our leaders in the past have contributed all to their mothers. Here are just a few of the favorites. The quote from George Washington, our founding father: "All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute all my success to this life, to the moral and physical education I received from her." Our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, said, "I remember my mother. Prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. All that I am, ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." Our 25th president, which was William McKinney, said, "By the blessing of heaven, I meant to live, die in all things, please God, is the faith of my mother." Over the course of my life, there have been many calls for men in this country to return being fathers to the children. But the need for mothers to be mothers is just as great. I read through the Bible many times. Believe it or not, I can tell you that there's nothing more important to the future of the church and the future of this country and the world than godly parents doing what God has called them to do. And here in our text here, I think we need a model of motherhood. As we get into Exodus, our scripture for today, Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. "And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw that he was a godly child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and dabbed it with slime and with pitched, and put all the children and put the child therein, and laid him in a flag by the river bank. And his sister stood far away to watch what might be done with him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked alongside the river. And when she saw the ark upon the flag, she sent her maiden to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children." Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call thee a nurse for this Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maiden went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied in Egypt, spying a Hebrew, one of the brothers. Let me summarize chapter 1 of Exodus for you. The people of Israel have been in Egypt for a long time now, and they began to multiply and grow in numbers. Pharaoh began to get a little nervous. He was afraid that they would become too powerful, so he enslaved them. He put them into slavery. They were still having babies and growing up in growing numbers. So So he came up with a plan, or an idea. He gave an order that every boy that was born to the Hebrews was to be thrown into the Nile River. In verse 2, we find where Moses' mother hid him for 3 months. Something that is interesting here because it does not say anything about Moses' father. This was his mother's apparently alone. I did not know why Moses' father was not involved in any way, but there was no mention of him. And in verse 3 comes to the day when she could hide him no longer. She made a little basket and floated him down the river. The question catches me, then I think of Solomon's judgment. If you find in 1 Kings chapter 3, First Kings chapter 3, verses 23 through 28. Then said the king, the one said, "This is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead." And the other said, "Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is living." And the king said, "Bring me a sword." And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, "Divide the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other." And then spake the woman whose living child was unto the king. Her bowels yearned upon her son, and said, "O Lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay him." But the other said, "Let it be either mine or thine, but divide it." And then the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and in no way slay it. She is the mother's thereof. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw what the wisdom of God was in him, and to the judgment. Solomon's orders that a child be cut in half to determine the true mother, which I realized had not happened. Moses' mother put him in a basket, but sentimental is still the same. If Moses' mother would have kept him, Pharaoh would have had killed him. Moses' mother put him alive in the basket and then into the river and trusted him to God. There was a chance he would live. Moses' mother was willing to lose her son that he might live. That is also important. To be able to release him into the river, Moses' mother had to trust him to God. Mother's Day are going to come, and you have got to just trust God and let it go. Things that are completely beyond your control will find your children. Then you're knowing that you have done all you can. You've got to trust God to lead them through. Another thing that I find intriguing is that we don't know much about Moses' mother's name until we get to Exodus 6, chapter 20. Let's turn to Exodus 6, verse 20. And Abram took him, I guess I'm pronouncing it right, Jochebed, his father, sister to wife, and she bare him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Abram were 137 years. Her name is Jochebed. She was only mentioned in the Bible just a couple of times. This might be a way of showing us that motherhood isn't a high-profile occupation that gets you on TV, or one where you'd be asked to sign a lot of autographs, unless you could count the school's permission slips. But that doesn't diminish the importance of this role. Our society has a way of exiling the trivial and ignoring the vitals. For example, what is most important in our world? Teachers or actors? The answer should be teachers. Yet, these two, who gets paid more? Who always is asked their opinion about things? As a mother, do we let your lack of celebrity ever lead you to believe that you are not important? Nothing in this world is more important than the role and shaping of the next generation. The Bible tells us, this. Turn to Proverbs chapter 31. Verses 25 through 30. Proverbs 31, 25 through 30. I'll be with you in just a second. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is law and kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and earneth not the bread of ills. Her children are raised up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done, but thou excellency them all. Favor is the disciple, and beauty is vain. But a woman that fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Then look in Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6. Go to the ant, the sluggard consider her ways, and he be wise. And if you turn to Proverbs 6 and go down to verse 20. My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. We find in verse 4 through 10, we see God's plan go into action. Pharaoh wanted to kill Moses, and God ends up having Moses raised in Pharaoh's house, right underneath his nose. And not only that God has Moses' own mother nurse him, as parents, none of us know how long we're going to have our kids. It seems like yesterday that my kids were in diapers, but now they're all grown and moved away. But like Moses' mother, we cannot, like Moses' mother, we can make our time count. Like I said, we don't know how long exactly she had with her son, but obviously she done very well. Kids know that we are charged to never forget the lesson your mother teaches you, and that your lives, trials will come that not even your mother can help you with. There is no perfect mother. There's no perfect child. All relationships need good forgivers, ready to give grace to each other. As Christians, we are to love without condition and with a heart of unselfish desire. We are to give all that we have because in Christ we already have that we need. This is a calling. This is your calling. It's your ministry. And it's one to the greatest in the world. Behind you here on board, the word mother. I'm going to explain to you what the word mother means to me. The M reminds me of her marvelous love. The O reminds me I have just one mother. The T reminds me of her tender care. She's always taken care of us kids. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My mother made a lot of sacrifices to take care of us kids. The H reminds me of her heart of gold. She would do just about anything for us kids. I said almost now. But the E reminds me of her endless service. The R reminds me of her, to remember her not only on Mother's Day, but every day throughout the year. On this Mother's Day, whether your mother is by your side or far away, still on earth, or passing to eternity, give thanks to God for the gift of her life He has given you through her. In closing, I would like to say, what can we do for our mothers on a special day? I've got 5 things that I think you ought to try. First thing is love. Love Mom today as though she were going to die tomorrow. So how we act as though our grandmothers will live forever. But we know that's not true. The way we treat our mothers is probably the way our children will treat us. The daughter of a good mother will be the mother of a good daughter. Number 2, tell Mom that you love her. A mother's job is one of the hardest in this world. In Ephesians 5, verse 25, you'll find, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Mothers need to hear that they are loved. Not just once every so often. You need to tell them more often that they're loved. Number 3, show your love in a tangible way. Do not forget her birthday, anniversary, or any other special day. Thoughtfulness tells Mom that you're thinking of her and you care. 4th, arrange for her to take once in a while a day off. Why not? I mean, everybody else gets days off. Why not Mom? Stand up, wash dishes, clean the house, do something nice for Mom. And 5, pray for her. Mothers have faults and weaknesses just like everybody else. Prayer will make her a better mother and you more aware of her needs. So moms, we love you and appreciate everything that you have done for us. Thanks for being the example for us. In many cases, you're the reasons that we are Christians today. If you are not a Christian and have never asked Christ to come into your life and guide you, we'll give you that opportunity today as we stand and sing our invitation song. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I know it was short and sweet. But I'll tell all you mothers out there and grandmothers how much I appreciate y'all. Like I said, my mother's been gone 11 years. And I miss her. If I do some things over, you bet I would. But let's just take time out today, sometime today, tell your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, whatever, how much you really appreciate her and what God has done for you through her. Because like I said before, mothers have one of the hardest jobs on this earth right now. So I want to thank y'all very much and turn it back over to the brother.